Just want to make sure that we are live on YouTube. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As I said just a minute ago, this is going to be a very special Kabbalat Shabbat. A Cantor Angress with his accompaniment of Andy
Just want to make sure that we are live on YouTube.
Has prepared a beautiful musical Kabbalat Shabbat, first in our little Parlor concert series. And so as we're here coming together, seeing all those beautiful faces, let's take a deep breath in and out and leave the stresses of the week behind, the uncertainties of the week behind, and let's listen to these beautiful musical prayers that the Cantor has prepared for us. I'll hand it over to you. Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Rabbi, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. As the Rabbi mentioned, this is the first in a series of Parlor recitals that we're going to do throughout the year, but of course this is also a service as well. We're here to celebrate Shabbat. Of course, I welcome back our accompanist, Donnie Schreibman from ASU, who's here to play for us tonight. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. Just a quick technical thing. We have a special microphone that we're using in order to pick both of us up. And in order for that to work properly, and since we're also streaming, we request that everyone please stay muted throughout. But of course, sing along if you're able to at home as well. The service is going to be a little different tonight because of all the music that we're doing. So we're going to begin actually on page 61. We're going to begin with Ma Tovu. And this setting was written by Chazan Charles Davidson and was commissioned by a colleague and mentor of mine, Chazan Henry Rosenblum, to be written specifically for him when he was the dean of the JTS Cantorial School. So we're going to begin with the Nigun and Ma Tovu.
La 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 la
Now we'll go over to Germany, and we'll turn to page 15 for Lechune Ranana. This setting of the first few verses are written by Louis Lewandowski, who was the choir master, organist, and Oberkantor in Berlin. And this specific transcription comes from the Chazan's manual of Pestalozzi-Strasse, one of the major synagogues in Berlin. So Lechune Ranana, page 15. Lechune Ranana l'Adonai, Naria le'surishenu, metanema fanav betoda, bismirot naria lo, ki el gadol Adonai, u'melech gadol al kol Elohim asher beyado mechkerei haaretz, to'avot harim elo. With that, we will now go over to Italy. We will turn to page 20 for Mismo David, Psalm 29. This setting is actually a melody that we all know, or most of us know. However, it was originally written at the end of the 18th century and by Michel Bolaffi, but was not composed, or it was not written down and published, rather, until about 50 years after that in the mid-1800s. So I will ask everyone to please rise if you are able for Mismo David. Once again, page 20. Mismo David, Havu Adonai b'nei Elim, Havu Adonai od va'oz, Havu Adonai kevod shemo, Ishtachavu Adonai behadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod, Irim Adonai al mayim, al mayim, al mayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arzeh halevanon, Vayarkideim kemo egel levanon, ve'sirion kemo ben re'emim, Kol Adonai Adonai, Vod Seif, Lavot Eish, Kol Adonai, Yafil Midbar, Yafil Adonai, Midbar Kadesh, Kol Adonai, Efolel Ayalot, Vayechesof Ye'arot, Uvechalot, Uvechalot, Kulo Omer Kavod, Adonai Lamabul Yashav, Vayeshev Adonai Melech Le'olam, Adonai Oz Le'amo Yitein, Adonai Yevarech et Amo, et Amo, et Amo Bashalom. You may be seated. And we'll continue now with Lecha Dodi. We explored Europe a little bit. We're going to come back stateside now to Los Angeles. And the setting of Lecha Dodi was written by Carl Erstein, who was the Chazan at Sinai Temple many, many years ago in LA. And this version of Lecha Dodi only uses a few of the stanzas from Lecha Dodi. So we will be singing Shamor v'Zachor, Likrat Shabbat, all on page 21. Then the bottom of page 21, Hitoreri. And then after that, we will go to Boi v'Shalom at the end of Lecha Dodi on page 22. And when we approach Boi v'Shalom, we will all rise if we are able to and face the entrance of our home to welcome Shabbat. So once again, pages 21 and 22, select verses of Lecha Dodi, Carl Erstein. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Shamor v'Zachor b'dibur echad, Ishminanu Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemu letiferet ve'litchila. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor hadracha, merosh mikedem lesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava tefila. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Shir Daber Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Penei Shabbat Mekabela. Please rise, face the entrance of your home. Boi, boi veshalom, ateret bala, gam besimcha. Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Penei Shabbat Mekabela. Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Penei Shabbat Mekabela. You may be seated. We'll continue now with the bottom half of the Psalm for Shabbat on page 23. Once again, we're going to go back to Germany. This setting, of course, written by Louis Lewandowski. I will start a few verses before Tzadik HaTamar. I'm sure we'll all recognize the melody once we get to Tzadik HaTamar itself. Page 23. Ki hinei oivecha Adonai. Beiteni beshurai, bakamim alai mereim, tishmana ozenai. Tzadik HaTamar yifrach ke'eres balvanon, balvanon iske shetulim beveit Adonai bechai. And we'll continue with Mourner's Kaddish, middle of page 24. Those who are in mourning reciting your site and would like to rise, please do so if you're able. Yit Gadal ve'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divara kirute ve'amlich malchute b'chayechon uve'yomechon uve'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael ba'agala uve'zman kariv v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Ye'ei Shemei Rabbah mevorach le'alam alalmei almaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitramam ve'yitnaseh ve'yithadar ve'yitale ve'yithalal shemei dekudesha b'richu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata ve'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya ve'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Rabbi, I hand it over to you for the Devar Torah.
Yes, yes, indeed. Ah, how wonderful. You know, you trajected me right back to Berlin, to the beautiful synagogues there. We love the music. Wonderful. Tonight, I want to tell you a little bit, not about Berlin, but about the story of Rebecca. We find them in our weekly portion. We find Yitzchak and Rebecca married for 20 years without children. And Isaac and Rebecca, they prayed side by side for children. And when they're finally heard, Rebecca receives a prophecy that goes as follows. 2 nations are in your womb, 2 separate people shall issue from your body. 1 people shall be mightier than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. And with that, a whole family drama ensues. We see Jacob buy the blessing of the firstborn, not the blessing, the right of the firstborn, the inheritance of the firstborn, right? The Bechorah, he buys it from Esav with a lentil stew. And then later on, as Isaac turns to Esau and says, I'm growing old, I want to give you my blessing, go out and hunt. Rebecca overhears it, and knowing that the younger should be the one who is chosen, knowing that the older should serve the younger, becomes proactive and makes sure that through cheating, through dressing up Jacob, through preparing her own meal, sending Jacob into the tent of Isaac, Jacob will get the blessing, because in her commitment to the lineage, in her commitment to make this family grow, to make God's promise materialize on this earth, she is getting ahead, and she wants to make sure. And so Jacob ends up stealing the blessing that was supposed to be for Esau. And interestingly, when we look at the blessing that Esau gets, it was actually not the ancestral blessing that God promised Abraham and Isaac. Because the ancestral blessing is a blessing that will include the blessing for offspring, for children, and the inheritance of the land of Israel, as we call it later. But when we look at the story, when we look into the tent of Isaac, when Jacob comes under the pretext of being Esau, the blessing that Isaac had prepared for Esau is actually a blessing of wealth and power. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. That's wealth, right? And it continues, may nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. And that is power. So Isaac knew not to give the ancestral blessing, the blessing that contains God's promise for the lineage that goes down from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then the 12 tribes. He knows not to give that to Esau. And so I think here, and I picked this thought up in an essay, in an interpretation of a few years ago of the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who points this out to us. Rebecca and Jacob make a mistake here. They want to materialize, they want to help, they want to be God's partners, but they're just a little too early. They're a little too eager to make it work. And we see that because when we know the story, right? When Esau comes from the hunting, he trembles, he cries, he actually has streams of tears falling and say, Father, don't you have another blessing? And he gets so enraged and angry that actually Jacob needs to flee because he needs to fear for his life. And at the end of the parasha, we see Rebecca and Isaac again saying goodbye to Jacob on his way to Haran to find a wife because he needs to get away from his angry brother. And there at the very end, Isaac, not sure if he will see his son again because he's old and his son is leaving to found the next generation. That's where Isaac blesses Jacob again, but this time with the blessing he had intended to Jacob. Right? And there it will say, may he give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham, so that you may take possession of the land where you now reside as a foreigner, that land God gave to Abraham. So what does this teach us this week? I would say it's good to be partners. It's good to be active. I stand by that to help materialize God's blessings in this world. However, I think this part teaches us that we are not all wise. Sometimes we need to let things play out. Sometimes we need to have patience. Sometimes we need to take a seat back and trust others that they will do the right thing, right? Sometimes we need to be patient and wait a little bit and let the others have their blessings and do their thing before we can come back into action. And this is one thing that sat with me all week, this week, as we're all in this country need to be so patient with COVID, need to be so patient with the political landscape. We need to be active, but sometimes we can't force things. And we need to wait, especially in the pandemic, until our blessing comes again, until the right vaccine is found, until the right remedies are found, right? We need to wait and be careful and wait for our blessings to come. And with that, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Yashkoach. Thank you. We're going to continue with the Mariv service now, and I invite everyone to turn to page 28. We're going to begin with the Baruch, and this setting written by famed Yiddish theater composer Shalom Secunda. Secunda also wrote liturgical music for certain cantors, particularly Jan Pierce and Richard Tucker. So this is the version that Richard Tucker has sung in services and in recordings. So I invite everyone to please rise if you are able. Baruch Hu at the top of the page, 28. Baruch Hu. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Le'olam Va'ed. You may be seated. We'll continue with the English reading on the bottom half of page 28. Light and darkness, night and day, we marvel at the mystery of stars. Moon and sky, sand and sea, we marvel at the mystery of sun. Twilight, high noon, dusk and dawn, though we are mortal, we are creation's crown. Flesh and bone, steel and stone, we dwell in fragile, temporary shelters. Grant steadfast love, compassion, grace. Sustain us, O God, our origin is dust. Majesty, mercy, love endure. We are but little lower than the angels. Resplendent skies, sunset, sunrise, the grandeur of creation lifts our lives. Evening darkness, morning dawn, renew our lives as you renew all time. We'll continue in the Hebrew, where the little box is in the middle of page 28. Baruch atah Adonai Hamariv Aravim. We'll continue on page 29 with Ahavat Olam, the setting written by Emmanuel Jack Barkin, a frequent contributor to Jewish music, particularly pieces composed for the Cantor's Assembly of America. So Ahavat Olam, page 29. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael Lamecha, Ahavta, Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu, limadeta, al-kein, Adonai Eloheinu, b'shocheveinu, u'v'kumeinu, nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, u'vahem negeh yomam v'layla, ve'avatecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai Ohem Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha ve'hayu hadevarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibartabam בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Continue silently, pages 30 and 31. Adonai Elohechem, emet ve'emuna kol zot ve'kayam aleinu, ki hu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ein zulato continue in the middle of page 32 with Mi Chamocha. This time we are going back to Italy. We were just in Germany with Lewandowski again at the top of the page. Now we're going to go back to Italy, and this is written by Salomone Rossi in 1623 in very much the Renaissance style, Mi Chamocha. Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh nora tehilot osef ele nora tehilot osef ele malchutecha ra'u banecha ze'eli anu ve'ameru Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Bottom of page 32. ונאמר כי יפעד אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל Now we're going to leave Italy, come back again stateside, this time to Chicago. This setting of Hashkivenu, which we're going to do for the first couple of verses and then continue with the last couple of verses, was written by Max Helfman, who was a well-known composer and choir director, I believe in the Chicago area. And the last couple of verses is in the style of Max Helfman, but was actually written by somebody else, as Helfman did not write it for the whole of Ashkenenu. So we will do the first couple of verses, we'll read in English, and then we'll do the end of Hashkivenu. Page 33. Bottom half of 33 on the English side. Protect us with your gift of peace by helping us to overcome temptation. When we are weak, sustain us. When we despair, open our hearts to joy. Shelter us in your embrace of peace when we are caught by conflict or desire. When we are torn, heal us. When we are tormented, touch us with tranquility. Cherish our fragmented lives. Make our lives whole again through integrity. When we deceive, turn us to you. When we corrupt, capture our hearts anew. Protect us from ourselves. When we falter, help us to conquer the enemy within. When we blunder, restore us. With compassion, teach us that peace is based on your truth. We'll continue with the end of Hashkivenu on the Hebrew side, page 33. O Pharos, Aleinu, Sukkot Shalom Echa, Baruch Atah Adonai. Please rise if you are able to. We will continue now with Vishamru and the Chatzi Kaddish. The Vishamru is written by another Cantor's Assembly former member, Aminadav Aloni. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam. Chatzi Kaddish, bottom of the page. It gadal veit kadash shemei rabah be'alma divrach hirutei ve'yamlich malchutei bechayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Continue with the silent Amidah, which begins on page 35b and concludes on page 38. If you are still reciting the Amidah, please continue. We're going to now turn to page 48 for the full Kaddish. And this version is one that I think everybody recognizes. And it is, of course, our rabbi's favorite version of the full Kaddish. So, of course, we had to include it. And all I'm going to say is that once you hear it, I promise you it is not the high holidays right now. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביום איכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולמי עלמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן תתקבל צלו תהום ובאו תהום דכל ישראל קורם מבון דיבי שמיה דיבי שמיה דיבי שמיה ואמרו אמן יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה וחיים וחיים עלינו עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו And with that, we start.
Can I say something?
Yes, absolutely.
Hang on. You hear the music. I love to hear it now also with the great piano accompaniment. This Kaddish just lifts us up. It has so much rhythm and so much energy. That's why it's one of my favorite settings, because it really lifts us up there to the sanctity and to the affirmation that we're giving in the Kaddish of God being our source and energy and source of life. And so I see, Cantor, that you're ready to make Kiddush.
Yes.
So I invite everyone who has the Kiddush ready to bring it if you want to, and I'll give it back to you.
Thank you. So this version of the Kiddush is different than what we're normally used to. It is actually written by the famous classical and Broadway composer Kurt Weill, famous for the Three Penny Opera and other Broadway shows. It sounds very much like Gershwin, so I'm just giving everybody the heads up. I invite everyone to please rise if you are able, and we are on page 49 for the Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זכור במעשה וברית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. We will continue with Aleinu on page 51. Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב עיקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומי. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס עולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, תנת היום והשבותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד. אדוני אלוהינו ליום הזה. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד. ביום ההוא יהיה
At this moment in our services, we remember yortzeits of family members of members. And today we have a minyan request from one of our dear members, Barbara Holtzman, who remembers her father, Joseph Lapp. And I want to ask Barbara if you wanted to share a short memory with us before we mention all the other yortzeit names and say the Kaddish. Is she there? She's here. You need to unmute yourself.
Me?
Barbara, you...
Yes, I'm sorry for the delay. Thank you, Rabbi. Yes, my father, Joseph Lapp, was a very unique person. I know we say that about many of our family members, but truly for me, he always was a guiding light because his main concern was to live a life of integrity. His word was his bond. If he said he was going to do something, he did it. And he had a company for many years. He was in the wholesale ready-to-wear business in Minneapolis. And all of his employees stayed with him 20, 30 years until he closed his firm because he was known as a man whose word was his bond. He gave me that legacy. He also gave me the love of words and how to use them. And this is a very poignant time of the year for me because my father came every Thanksgiving to celebrate with us, and he just loved it because they made all of his favorite dishes, and he would look forward to it, and it was a labor of love. So it's always a very poignant holiday now since I lost him. And he's been gone 16 years. The 18th, which was Wednesday, was his English, the day I lost. And I always thought that was high. And my father believed in living life and always went forward.
Thanks so much for sharing, and may his memory really be a continued inspiration to you and to all of us. And together with his yortzeit, we remember also the yortzeits of this 5th of Kislev, Hannah Berthoff, Paul Bindleglass, Jack Leon, Chris, William Cohen, Irving Friedman, Shirley Kahn, Myron Harold Launer, Harold Levy, Bertha Lupovich, and James Miller. And is there anyone else who has a yortzeit that we haven't mentioned here on the list?
Yes, Dorothy Kravitz.
Who is she to you?
My mother.
Your mother also. Do you want to also share just a short memory?
Yes, my mother, sadly, her mother got sick with a neurologic disorder when she was young and was in a Jewish nursing home. And for about 15 years, every Sunday faithfully, my mother would take the family to visit her mother. And when she got older, she would always visit people who were disabled or ill and so forth. So that was something that she practiced, and I thought that was a very wonderful trait. Of course, I'm a physician, so that's what I do with people.
Mazel tov.
Thank you for sharing, Yesher Koach. And let's now, together with all, may she also be an inspiration, a continued inspiration. And together with all those who are no longer with us on this earth, who we remember fondly, let's say the Mourner's Kaddish on page 52.
Amen.
Yitgadal v'yitgadat shemeh Rava, ve'alma divrach chirutei ve'yamlech malchutei, b'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'b'chayei dechol Beit Israel, b'agala u'b'zman kariv v'miru. Amen. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי עולמיה.
Yes.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לאל האמין כל ברכתה ושירתה. ושבחתה ונחמתה. לאמירן בעלמה וימרו אמן. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה. וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל וימרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל וימרו אמן. And before we close, you may be seated. Before we close out into this beautiful Shabbat evening, just a few announcements. Tomorrow, we have a great Mazel Tov to give to Daniel Rosen and Evie Hai and their families. They'll be called up to the Ofruf. It's the Shabbat for their wedding. Their wedding is on Sunday. Mazel Tov. Join us tomorrow on Facebook at 9:30 to celebrate with them as they get, this is the last Shabbat that they're not married. And it's just such a joyous occasion for us, for many of us here. Tomorrow evening at 5:40, join us for Sundala. That is a fun initiative where just after dark, we get together, we dance either in our chairs or in standing up. We come together on Zoom on this link, getting new energy, saying goodbye to Shabbat with good music and dancing energy before we start Havdalah at 6:05. So join us if you can again. And then Sunday, we have our fundraiser, the turkey train for the Valencia Newcomer School. Sunday morning, 11:30 to 12:30, turkey train donation drive. Bring a turkey, a frozen turkey or non-perishable side dishes. Our donations go to the Valencia Newcomer School, who are all young families who immigrated, who can really need our help. Or you can also give over our website, you also can make a monetary donation. But I think it would be fun if you came with something, because all our teachers from Talmud Torah will be there. We'll say hello. If you come as a family, we can say hello. I'm going to be there. And so it's going to be a nice get together before we all are going into the week of Thanksgiving, where we this year, unfortunately, need to stay a little bit more in smaller circles for the pandemic and stay safe. Now, last but not least, huge thank you to Cantor, Angress, and Danny Schreibman for bringing us Jewish music, bringing us a Jewish Shabbat from throughout the centuries, throughout the continents, from the Renaissance in Italy, through Germany, through this country here in different. It was so inspiring. It was so wonderful to be led by your melodies into this beautiful Shabbat evening. I want to thank you. I want to say a yesher koach, a big yesher koach. I think we all enjoyed it. And if you liked it, mark your calendar. Our Cantor has the second in this Parlor concert series will be a Sunday of Hanukkah. Sunday night of Hanukkah, December 13th. At 6 o'clock, he will do candle lighting, also again over Zoom, and have a beautiful Hanukkah concert for us prepared. Right? Okay, Cantor, I give it back. I say from here, Shabbat Shalom. I hope to see many of you over Facebook tomorrow and on Sunday in person with the drive-through. Shabbat Shalom.
Hey, thank you, Rabbi. Thank you so much for the kind words. And of course, I also have to personally thank, again, our accompanist, Donnie Schreibman, once again for coming in and all the rehearsals. And he's going to continue to be our accompanist throughout this Parlor series. over the next several months. So thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to conclude tonight actually with Adon Olam. And so I invite everyone to turn to page 54. And we're actually going to go back to Italy one more time. And this Adon Olam is a special upbeat Renaissance Adon Olam written in 1732. And if you want to try to sing along, you may. Enjoy, and Shabbat Shalom. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Le'ein Nasa B'chefso Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Azai Melech Shemo Nikra. Ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado imloch nora levado imloch nora ve'hu haya ve'hu hoveh ve'hu yeh betifara ve'hu yeh betifara. Ve'hu echad ve'ein sheni lehamshil lo lehachbira lehamshil lo lehachbira beli reshit beli tachlit velo haoz ve'hamisra velo haoz ve'hamisra. Ve'hu Eli ve'chai go'ali ve'tzur chev li be'et Sarah ve'tzur chev li be'et Sarah ve'hu nisi umanos li menat kosi Beyom Mekra, Menat Kosi, Beyom Ekra, Beyado, Avki Ruhi, Be'et Ishan, Be'anira, Be'et Ishan, Be'anira, Ve'im Ruhi, Geviati, Adonai li velo ira, Adonai li velo ira.
Rabbi, I would like to say something. Am I unmuted? Am I unmuted, Rabbi?
Yes, you are unmuted.
Okay. All right.
And you're on
Anyway,
the spotlight.
I want the spotlight. I've been at Bethel for 55 years. So I've seen lots of rabbis and lots of cantors. But the two of you are the most stimulating and exciting and make the services so special and enjoyable. And we feel blessed to have both of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, let's put this on gallery views. Everyone can say Shabbat Shalom and Yesher Koach to the Cantor.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.